Hello and welcome back to another anime adventures video. It's me, Suryo, and today we will talk about the best units to have in anime adventures in 2025. First of all, it's important to know that every unit fulfills a certain role. For example, we do have Law over here. He is a so-called support unit because of his ability Shambles, and we will get into that later. Then we have Gilgamesh, who is a DPS because of his high attack. Then we also have units like Wenda, who can buff other units as we can see here. Koichy, Bulma, which I already placed over there, and Griffith. So we can divide the units in three parts: in damage dealers, in supports, and also in farms. And I will show you the best farms, supports and damage dealers we have right now that are also obtainable at the moment right now. So let's go. Alright, so let's get right into it with the farms. The first one we're gonna start with is Speedwagon. Speedwagon is a tree placement, and as you can see, he generates money over time. So with each wave passed, he generates at max 2.5k money. His best trade would be gold if you want to roll it on him, but the only problem is it's a 0.2% trade, and it's mostly better to reroll on other units other than him. He's also a cheap placement, so he's really good for story modes and shorter modes in the game. On the other hand, we have another farm unit, and this is Bulma. Bulma, as you can see, costs way more than Speedwagon, and if we upgrade her, it takes way more money. But she's only one placement, and she generates up to 10k without golden per placement in total. So she's better for infinite runs, basically, because she generates more in total. Because if we combine these three, we get up to 7.5k. But she will generate 10k each round. So the best thing, for example, for the daily challenge would be to use both to generate as much money as you can. With all that being said, let's move on to the support units. Alright, let's get into it. We have Erwin here, who is a buffer. What does he buff? Short answer, physical units. Boom. 25% buff. If you place 4 of him, like this, then you can perform a Erwin buff, which is just a 100% damage buff in total, because at the moment the physical units he buffs get a 25% buff. He is basically a must-have for infinite runs and also for the events like the winter event and the Halloween event, because he buffs every single unit by 100% if you do the buff correct, and this is a whole game changer, because 100% is obviously double damage in the end for physical units. Okay, now we have the same thing essentially, but only for magic units. As you can see, both of them get a 30% buff. Alright, and over here we have another magic buff unit. Sadly she's unevolved, but what she does is she does the same thing as Wenda, but just with 50% per unit, and it caps at 100%, same as Wenda and Erwin. And coming now, Griffith. Griffith is a damage dealer and a buff unit, so he's also amazing for infinite runs, because you can sacrifice buff units like Erwin and Wenda in order to perform his buff. What is his buff? All the units and maps gets double damage. And he can also be made to a DPS unit by sacrificing all the DPS units or non-buff units that you have placed. As we can see, we can sacrifice Wenda for a yellow 1% buff, and then we can sacrifice Law for a red buff. The red buff is the DPS buff to make him to Griffith Darkness, and the yellow one is to make him the buff Griffin basically. Alright, to summarize it again, buff units like Wenda, Erwin and Griffith are amazing for infinite runs, Halloween runs, winter runs, just basically runs that are pretty long because they essentially double the damage or triple your damage with Griff, because on top of the 100% buff for magic and physical units, these units will also get another 100% buff from Griffith. Coming next are my favorite type of units in the game, the slow units. The slow units just slow down the whole fight and just make your life way more easier. So my favorite slow units are Koichy, Jiraya and Monet. Let's start with the weakest one, or the worst one, Jiraya. Jiraya is from the latest update, the Naruto update, and he is a mythic that slows obviously. And the biggest downside for him is he's an only ground unit. While Monet is hybrid on placement, which means she can slow down flying units and ground units for the price of 1.2k per placement. And Koichy also gets hybrid. Jiraya never will hit the flying enemies. And if you have a boss in an event that is flying, you are screwed up sometimes. While these guys can carry the boss fight in the end, he will just make you lose. So you should think twice of running him over Koichy and Monet. The biggest upside for Koichy is the insane slowness he can put on the enemy. It's up to 80% slowed, which is just incredible. It clutched so many runs for me because the enemies were almost at the base and then he slowed them down for a couple of seconds, which is really amazing because our units have more time to kill the final boss and in the end get us to the win. Alright, let's continue with other support units. First of all, we have Trafalgar D Law or Operator Room. What does he do? Essentially, he just does this. He teleports the enemies back half his range, and his ability has, I think, a 40 seconds or 1 minute cooldown. So essentially you just want an SSS stat on his range, because that's the most important stat for him, since he teleports the enemies half of his range backwards. The next unit is Usopp. Usopp is an amazing clutcher. He can also save you so many runs because you can place him at the end of the map and he spawns these plants. These plants will deal tons of damage. As you can see, let's upgrade them. Each of these plants will deal 60k, and in the end, with the Griff buff active, they will deal 1 billion each. So if everyone brought an Usopp, and you can just place them over here, and you want to place them like this, because if you place them divided, the enemy sometimes regenerates so quickly that the Usopp will not clutch anything. So you want to place it on one place. Basically that's like this, so the enemy will take a lot of damage in a short period of time and just die. The only downside for Usopp is he deals true damage, so he can't get buffed other than by Griffith. But this is also a good thing because he isn't affected by damage reductions for physical and magical units. Our next unit is going to be Oshi from Oshi no Ko. What she does, she buffs your damage, she generates money, and she makes you spend less to upgrade your units, as you can see. And let's just upgrade her, max her. As we can see, we get all the buffs, and now Law only costs 1.7k to upgrade instead of 2.3k, for example. Oshi is really good in short modes like story modes, raids, portals, because in infinite runs she won't be as good because you don't have to max, you will max out every single unit essentially further or later, and the 20% damage buff isn't that good because you would rather want to run Griffith or a whole new unit because they will deal way more damage in the end. Alright, let's come to my favorite unit in the game, Kira. What does he do? It's pretty simple. Meets the end or bites the dust, rewinds every single enemy on the map. So, if the boss is here, like I'm the boss, okay? And I hit the base almost, and then you activate the rewind. He will just start to walk back like this, until here for example, and your units will have more time to kill the enemy as well, which just makes him amazing. Sadly, he's not a hybrid unit, so there could be some other support units that you would run above him. Let's continue with the secret unit from the latest update, the Naruto update, before anime adventure shut down. Pain, as we can see, blows the enemies away. He gets way too much damage, but basically what he does, he hits the enemy, he blows some a bit away. Which is really good because this will also slow down the whole fight for you. So, to summarize, support units. Support units are the units you want to bring in every single fight because they just make your life easier. And they can clutch fights for you, they can slow the units down, they can buff the damage from your units and everyone else on the map. So guys, definitely bring them in every single fight, because only DPS won't be enough for most of the hardest fight in the game. Let's continue to the DPS now, to the attackers. Alright, let's continue with the final category of this video, the DPS units. Over here, we probably have the best unit you want. Without this trait, you definitely don't want Adapt on him. I just am really unlucky with traits. I don't have a single unique and I'm level 140. My best trait, you saw it on Usopp, it's Celestial. And other than that I have 2 Reapers or 3, I'm not sure. Basically, Guts is an amazing unit who becomes a full AoE bleed unit in the 8th upgrade, basically, which just makes him an amazing unit overall. And Shalltear, she's also a pretty cheap unit. She is a DPS and a support unit for guards because she buffs bleed damage. What does this mean? You will just make way more damage with the bleed your guts does. The next unit is Sasuke. Sasuke is similar to Guts, but instead of bleed, he gives the enemy burn damage. And he's also pretty good because he has high DPS, damage per second, and is also not that expensive. And as we can see here, he is a ground unit. That's the only downside. That's why I would prefer for you to run Guts over him. Yeah, that's all to say to him. He's just a very good meta unit overall with a huge circle. Alright, guys, look at this. It's Goku Super Saiyan 3 and Majin Vegeta. Isn't that cool? They are my favorite units in the game. So, what does he do? Huge circle, cheap to upgrade, huge range. Full AoE ground damage, very expensive to upgrade, but the cool thing they can do is this little thing here. Fusion, boom, Vegito with both traits of them, which makes him the highest DPS in the game with double unique essentially. Or you can also have 4 times unique theoretically on this unit, which is just insane to think about. Well, look at them. Look at this unit. Look at this huge range. And this without buffs, right? It's just a 347, has 375k placement. He's very expensive to upgrade, but he's so good for infinite runs, for the Christmas event, for the Halloween event. And Goku and Vegeta are also good for raids, for story, for everything in the game. This is basically the perfect synergy. And the fusion just makes these two units even better than they are. By the way, Majin Vegeta is better than Goku overall, but Vegito is the best, obviously. So we can do this 3 times per round because they are a 3 placement each, or Goku is a 4 placement, I think. Yeah, he's a 4 placement and he's a 3 placement. So we can fuse to 3 Vegitos overall in 1 round. That's it with the video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you like it. If you have any feedback for me, feel free to write it in the comments. And please like the video and subscribe for more anime adventures content. And stay hydrated.